Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Beyond BMR. Of course, I am your host, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. How are you this afternoon, this evening, wherever you may happen to be in this world of ours? Going to be a fantastic show. Cristina Gomez joins us. Strange Paradigms. She's all over the internet and media. Fantastic guest. I can't wait to get into this. And joining me in Studio B, of course, from the lovely state of Missouri, is, of course, Christa from the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. Please subscribe to the Blondes and the Booze, if not already, on YouTube. Don't forget, if this is your first time here, please hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, Texas Front Porch, and, of course, the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast. And, of course, Miss Cristina Gomez. That's the name of her channel, Cristina Gomez. Check it out. It's awesome. Make a T-bone right off the bat. Great way to start the show. The great Super Chat is a great way to help support what we do around here. It is so greatly appreciated by myself and everybody that works around here. This isn't really work, though, right? I do appreciate that. Your donations are never expected, but always appreciated. Thank you for that. Hit the like, share us out. Make sure the alert bell is on. You know, a lot of you have been talking to me lately, sending comments. Rob, I missed your show, half hour late, this, that, and the other. We were just talking backstage. That's why the replay is such a great thing. But the alert bell, a lot of times, you guys, every once in a while, go to your favorite channel, your favorite shows. Make sure the alert bells are on because it does happen. You know, YouTube's so big, and I think it is what it is. Thank you, Gary Spice, for gifting 5 Bigfoot, Mr. and Rob Pirate memberships. Hey, matey. You too can become a BMR pirate. Join today. Thank you, Gary, for gifting out those memberships. If you want to help support what we do, again, go to our channels and you can check out in our about pages a list of things that we have going on. And what we do have going on is Monday nights is Texas Front Porch, 8 o'clock to 11. Starts out with the Diva Dimension with Daniel Diva. Then it's Tex and Brandy. For 2 hours after that. Every Tuesday night right here with me and Christa is Beyond BMR, 9 o'clock in the East. Barton not only does something in Humanoids live Wednesdays, 9 o'clock in the East. Thursdays is, of course, Thursday afternoon at 1 with myself and Texas Brunch with Bigfoot, Mr. Rob. Checking on out, if not already. And Thursdays, we've got the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. They come on at 9 in the East with of course, Christa and Brandy. Then Tex has something with Monica Rollins. It's called The Paranormal Among Us. Go check out Miss Rollins. She does a fantastic job over there. Fridays is, of course, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. They mix in a little woo Friday nights at 8 o'clock. Check them out. Saturdays, Truth or Tinfoil with Brandy and Randy at 6. And at 7, Texas doing something called Infamous Minds. It's true crime. It's Sunday nights at 7. And so thanks for getting that out of the way. And here's something I'm glad I'm finally getting this out of the way, everybody. We've been promoting this now since before Christmas time. The Alabama Bigfoot Conference, okay? Taking place June 7th and June 8th in the wonderful city of Anniston, the Anniston Performing Arts Center, brought to you by Sidekicks Paranormal. That's right, Sidekicks Paranormal. Tickets, you won't find a cheap venue. $30 online and $35 at the door. Go to BamaBigfootConference.com for more details. Speaking of details, the conference is actually on the 8th. June 7th is the, we're having a meet and greet at Alabama Sizzler House, I think it's called. It's a steakhouse. It's already booked. However, we're not going to turn you away. Neither will the restaurant. So you got to come on down, hang out with us, chat with us. Let's share some stories, get to know each other before the event that takes place on the 8th. And Tex Weston is the host or the master of ceremonies. Speaker lineup includes Barton Nunnally, Daryl Denton, the Blondes and the Booze, Jason McLean, Greg Ogles, Martin Gross, and of course, yours truly. I can't wait. It's coming up this weekend already. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring up Christa right here in a minute here. Hang on one second. Let me just get rid of that. Bring up the lovely Christa.
Hey.
Hello, Christa.
Hey.
And yes, I can't believe we're about, today's Tuesday. So tomorrow I start.
2 days.
Well, I got to start packing my stuff.
Yep, me too.
And you're in Branson. You're out of town on work.
I am. I'm in Branson at I don't know, some fancy hotel my work put me up at.
Yeah, I seen that. Boy, this young lady is living in a suite over there.
I am. They got me a suite and even paid for valet parking. Like, wow. I wouldn't even pay for that myself.
I mean, I saw the little video you dropped. You can get lost in that place in your room.
Oh yeah, it's super nice. And they it was kind of funny because I had a headache earlier and I had ibuprofen in my car. So I went down to valet. I'm like, I don't need my car, but I need to get in my car. So the guy walked me back to my car so I could get my ibuprofen out.
Well, that's all right. You've got the luxury. You got the luxury life you're leading over there.
Well, tonight anyway. Back to reality tomorrow.
Back to reality. You're going to skip out on your last meeting, perhaps, like everybody seems to do with work-related events. Just
Probably
to get home.
So. Probably so.
You can come up. We were talking earlier. You can come up with a little, oh, you boy, I'm not feeling all that well type of
That's
thing.
right. I thought about doing that today, but I'm like, today I, do the first day and be good. And so tomorrow's a whole different ballgame. I'll do breakfast and then we'll see.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I'm really excited to get down and see you. And then I'm flying into St. Louis. And then I'm driving. Then I'm spending the night at your place, I guess. And we're going to drive up to good old Alabama.
Alabama. Yep. To Western Sizzling.
Western Sizzling. I always forget the name of that.
Yeah.
Or do I? Do I really know what it's called? I've only been doing this for since December.
Right.
That's a secret. They're all unveiled at the.
But that's okay. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody again, though.
Oh yeah, it'll be great times. Great times had by all. Speaking of a great time, this show's gonna be a great time. I got a great guest on, first time ever on the show, and I'm gonna get right into it and bring her up.
Hi there.
Hello,
Cristina. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. I'm so excited for today and a nice dark evening talking about all the strangeness, UFOs, and cryptids. I could not be more excited for today.
Well, yes, and I tell you what, you are a wealth of knowledge. For those that don't know, Christina's got an awesome channel. You cover everything. I remember back when I first started following you, a lot of ufology and things, but boy, you've really expanded over maybe the last year and a half. You're doing all sorts of different things with the darkness, cryptids, lost civilizations. I mean, time travel. A lot of things we talk about on this show, and which is great because I like having a variety, and you certainly have a variety-packed show and media that you got going on for yourself.
Thank you so much. I mean, just like yourself, it's just good to have that variety. But the more research you do, the more you begin to realize the correlation between all of them. You cannot have one without the other. And so that's the biggest reason to why there is that form of variety, is just because one topic takes you down 10,000 rabbit holes, maybe.
Yeah, 10,000 rabbit holes, and you are pretty much mirroring what Christa and I and the rest of my gang says. Us gang. It's all, and I believe this firmly. I said I believe this about a year ago, really, to be honest with you. As you mentioned, studying up on all this, it's all connected in some fashion. It really is.
Absolutely, it is.
You can't have one without the other. You can't have a UFO sighting without having a Bigfoot all of a sudden turn up. You can't have a UFO turn up and a missing person gets snatched away. Or a Bigfoot turns up and a person's missing, with all the, the mysteries of the 411 and all this stuff is it's all packed together. It's just not one thing out there.
Doesn't seem like it.
Yeah. A lot of, UFO sightings. There's Bigfoot, around there too. You hear both. So it's pretty cool.
So what really got you started in this? I mean, I know it's kind of a pat question and kind of a boring question, but really, when did you first get into, I'm really interested in these topics?
It's a very important question to always ask guests because everyone has their own origin story. And for myself, I was very lucky to have very open-minded parents. And luckily, my father got me into the TV show The Twilight Zone. So that's really what got me started, of just asking these kinds of questions of like, what's really beyond the veil? What really happens when people go missing, when there are strange sightings in the sky? What's really going on? And that TV show truly got me started. And then from there, reading up on books. But it wasn't until I went into university that I had free time on my hands to really start doing a deeper dive into this topic that I've always wanted to do, but never really knew how to start. And then luckily I found an amazing community such as yourselves, and it's just gotten a lot easier to know where to look and to find my footing with this topic, because there's just so much. And you know what? It can be so overwhelming for a newbie. But once you kind of get it down, it gets a little bit easier. But I'm using the word little in all caps because it's not that easy.
It's really not. And just trying to digest all this of everything, it takes some time to do it. I've been doing this 3 years now, and I just started out as a Bigfoot guy.
Right.
And I still know nothing about Bigfoot.
And I started with ghosts, so yeah.
And she's how it goes, paranormal. And so, but we find, like, not to beat a dead horse, it all blends together. Do you find yourself looking in the sky more often ever since your early days after the Twilight Zone?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Whenever I'm outside, I'm always looking up. And the funny thing about that is that when you're in public and you look up, people look at you and then they also look up into the sky as well. They're like, obviously, she's seeing something. And they're always looking up. And I'm like, no, guys, I'm not seeing anything. But just in case, because you always got to keep your eyes on the skies.
Yep.
I oftentimes still can't differentiate between a satellite or a UFO in the skies. I think most of the ones I see are satellites.
But you know what? It's a common thing. And that's why it's so important to have. And there's so many apps that will track satellites in the sky. Same with the International Space Station. Same with airplane flights. And just kind of jotting down what time it is and the time of day that it is. You'll be able to easily decipher if it is a UFO or if it is a satellite or the ISS.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the last couple times that I've been out looking, we've seen things, and it wasn't the satellite, and it's pretty cool. It's just I never realized I seen my first UFO last year, and I didn't realize, and me thinking it was you would see something, this triangle thing just right above your head. It's not how it is, and people need to get over that misconception. It looks like a star, but you can communicate with that star. It's pretty cool.
It's very exciting.
I want to get into some of your experiences and stories, Cristina. Certainly, I know you got plenty from your experiences and from your shows. But I must say, I did see a UFO. I was about 6 or 7 years old, but I saw the UFO when it was still called the Flying Saucer.
Yeah.
My favorite show growing up was Lost in Space. And I will tell you this, what I saw looked exactly identical to the Robinsons' flying saucer that they flew around the galaxies in. And it was like, and I was thinking because I was a kid, maybe that's why I, kind of had that in my mind, but I seen it. My mom woke up me and my brother about a half hour early for school. I'm like, Ma, and as kids, we have that time clock. We know when we're supposed to get up. We do not want to get up any earlier than we have to when you're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old.
Right.
My mom says, hey, come on down to the kitchen. So we look out, me and my brother were looking out the kitchen window. And yeah, there was a flying saucer. It was maybe 100 yards up in the air. I mean, maybe it was as big as a 22-foot round swimming pool. It was kind of hovering. Then it darted straight up and gone. My mom gets on the phone to call my dad. Hey, Bob, I seen a flying saucer, What? Now, back in the day, he worked in the factory. You don't call your husband off the floor back then. There was no cell phones, obviously. So he kind of hung up on her, got mad. But he got home, and we had the 5 o'clock news on. And he's sitting down, and I'm in there with my brother watching the news. So my mom called us in because in my neighborhood where I lived, grew up, there was over like 200 reports of this actual flying saucer reported to the news that morning. So there was something there. So
that's pretty exciting. Actually, that's actually a very cool story, especially what solidifies it was the news and just them covering it. Now, did they add jokes to that is another question, but they covered it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the most important part.
Yeah, you always see more often than not is the the alleged in Michigan, we get it quite a bit, especially like in the northern part of the state. Another Bigfoot sighting. Ha ha ha. I mean, that's just, and it just always grinds my gears when they do that, you know.
Mhm.
Of course.
And and I guess I wouldn't mind if we didn't do this, right? And I certainly know it exists. I'm a knower today because I saw something that was crazy, which is how I started in all this. So
So,
Well,
Christina,
that's oh,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, what I wanted to say was this is where these kinds of shows fill in the gaps where the news falls short. So we are so lucky to be able to do what we do here today to give people that inspiration, but at the same time to maybe solidify what they saw versus questioning it and saying, what did I actually see? Having these kinds of conversations, talking about these kinds of topics allows people to think to themselves, maybe I'm not crazy. And that's
Right.
pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
it is a great relief. And I'm glad you brought that point up. Maybe I'm not crazy because I'm not getting into me. This is about you, but for the longest time, I had nowhere to go when I had my Bigfoot encounter. Well, I call it Bigfoot. Still to this day, I'm not going to say for certain, and I'm not going to get into what I saw. But I was lost alone for a very long time and nowhere to turn. I knew nothing about YouTube. I used YouTube to watch music videos, okay, concerts. I didn't look on YouTube how to fix a flat. I never even knew that it had all this information. And then I started, rummaging around YouTube and yeah, then I finally found, this is back in 2018, right? Went on the internet and stuff like that. And I always growing up, I was like you, Cristina, a little bit different. I was brought up with Boris Karloff, Lon Chaney, and Bela Lugosi, which are Dracula, the werewolf, and Frankenstein's monster. That's what I was brought up on. So I was already a monster kid starting out, Then it evolved.
And look at you now.
Yeah, look at me. Look at me. I'm sitting here sweltering with no air conditioner as it went out today. But hey, that's my problem. That's my problem, not yours. So moving forward, I was watching one of your last shows several days ago, and I've always been interested in the aspect of time travel. And you know what? There was a question brought up on your show that I have asked several different guests or posed to other people that I never had heard before until it was on your show. And I always like to ask, are we perhaps aliens from the future?
There is that possibility. There are infinite theories when it comes to time travel, but could we have been that civilization that broke off from another planet, right? Because right now, what people think is a possibility is that at some point, humanity will have a broken off civilization going to another planet. And what we kind of want to do is, at least with Elon Musk and with NASA, is to get people on Mars by the year 2026. Which I don't think is going to happen at this point in time, but that would be classified as potentially a broken, a civilization leaving planet Earth. But could we be that possibility? And the thing is that when we look at these strange topics, and it's going to sound so cliche, but it's true, is that anything is possible. Everything that you thought you knew before entering this topic was probably wrong, skewed, misinformation, or no information at all. But the more you get into this, the more you begin to see that there is no such thing as the word impossible. Everything, maybe 99% of everything, is possible. So could we be that civilization? I never really considered it, but I don't see why not.
Interesting.
I don't see why not either. Because I believe, I was your Raz for this. I kind of always say I believe like everything. Well, Tex says I say that, which I really don't. There has to be something plausible about it. But when you see certain things, it makes anything possible. And I'm not the first person. If someone tells me a story, and I really shouldn't say story. Everybody says, Rob, you use the word story. Well, it's an encounter or it's an experience. There's still stories, right? I mean, not made up stories. But, what I saw, I tell my Bigfoot story. It's not a story, something I saw. And I think a lot of people get that confused. Oh, this guy's telling another story. When in fact, it's something where these people have come to me And I do these shows like every Saturday. I'll put out an encounter story that I get from somebody, and it's something that happened to them because they like to be number one. They want to be held in anonymity. They don't want their name. They don't want this or that. They don't want to come on a show like this because they just want to be to themselves because they're afraid of that fear factor, which I got skewed off on it a little bit. I was that guy that was embarrassed to tell people what I saw. I didn't even tell you my family or friends for the longest time because of getting laughed and ridiculed.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want your people at work to know that, oh, I saw a Bigfoot or I saw a UFO, I saw an alien.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
I was saying,
When we use language like that, story, encounter, sightings, people want to find any excuse to rip you apart. But the thing is that we've been telling stories since we created and used language. That it's just sharing an experience. But people want to be so nitpicky and say, "Oh, it's not a story; it's a sighting." But the thing is that you are still relaying your experience to a person, and that would be classified as a story. But you know what? Everyone to each their own. It's all about that perspective. But I want to say that story or not, you're still relaying what you experienced, what they experienced. And that is what matters. It's not the label, it's not the title, it's the story, it's the inspiration behind it.
Right.
absolutely. Speaking of stories, we hear these stories about, we're still going to be a little bit on the UFO alien topic to start the show a little bit. I've had a couple people on I've spoken with, Brandy and Christa have, Tex has, and a few other people that I watch. I watch your show. What is your thoughts on these people, not abduction stories, but people that get paid visits at night by alien greys, and then all of a sudden they're on a craft? And it depends. They think they're on a craft. They got either the silver titanium walls surrounding them or their white walls with the bright lights around the gurney. And then all of a sudden they find out years later that they were abducted, in a lot of cases with the women that they were used as I guess, I don't want to say a storage facility, but no, they
Like an
provide
incubator?
Thank you,
There
incubation.
you go.
I always forget that word, but yeah, what's your thoughts on that? Have you come across people talk to you about that? But what's your thoughts in general on that?
I've received a lot of people's stories sharing their experiences with UFOs, with cryptids, with shadow entities as well. And when we're looking at the alien abduction aspect, or in this case, where people believe to have been taken, usually by alien greys, as you had mentioned, it's very scary for the person experiencing it and also hearing it from the other end because you are not in control. And us humans, that's all we want, is to be in control of any situation, because when you lose it, you feel like the world around you is shaking. So in these instances where people are being taken on a craft, used as incubators, or their sperm is taken from them, right? It's a lot of people don't know how to rationalize it. A lot of people don't even know how to find the words to attempt to explain, because the first thing that comes to mind for these people is, am I crazy? Is it just my imagination? Did I go through something so traumatic that it's causing these strange memories that I can't fully remember and can't fully pull unless I go under regression hypnosis, or there's a trigger word or a trigger visual that those memories spark back up? And it's very difficult to comment on these things. But one thing that I can state is that a lot of these people that have been allegedly abducted is seeing the very similar patterns of being in a room that looks incredibly sterile, like more sterile than a hospital, people that feel immense fear. Many times people see alien greys, but it seems as if these alien greys are being used more as slaves. I mean, right now, the theories when it comes to UFO researchers attempting to understand these alien greys is that they might be partially AI, partially biological, and they're merely assisting other intelligent species like There are similar, like one's close to praying mantis species, one's very similar to like the Nordics, the Pleiadians, things like this, where they're just used as that, just as slaves. And it's very interesting to ask the question of why is this going on? Why are they taking humans? Why are they making them into incubators? Why are they making them go through this sense of fear and trauma? And we can attempt to apply this to almost the human mentality, is that we do that to animals all the time, not only for research to get a better understanding of what they do, how they work, but also for our own personal gain as well. Like the same way how cows make milk, how we eat veal, is it pronounced veal, like baby cows, right? These kinds of things, to us it's so normal, but if we were to attempt to explain it to the cow or maybe a different intelligent species, they would think that we're these awful monsters.
Right.
And so it's very difficult to attempt to rationalize what they are doing, in the sense of, for the human mind to attempt and understand. Is it to benefit humanity? Is it to benefit them? That's where it gets difficult. Now, there have been stories of people that have been able to encounter their, are they called starseed children? These starseed type entities, people, hybrids, to where the baby is taken from them, from the human mother, and then in a few years later, they get this revisitation by these extraterrestrials, maybe even interdimensionals, and they're able to see their half hybrid children for a short period of time. Why allow the mother to go through that trauma? And so
Right.
what we think is crazy, they might think is decently normal. So that question is very difficult to answer, just because we don't have a full understanding of what's going on.
A lot of these questions are difficult to answer because for what you just said, I mean, and the thing that really blows my mind is, let's say indeed that, and I'd have to think this way, aliens, extraterrestrials, if you will, they live in a different universe. To me, it seems like their technology would be a lot more advanced than ours, right? And I would often think, why would they even want to waste their time with human beings, right? What is there resources we have that they don't on these planets, perhaps? I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I mean,
Well, we could attempt to place that kind of thinking to biologists, right? Maybe even to archaeologists. They maybe just want to attempt and understand the world around them, have it be on a different planet, in a different galaxy, in a different universe. All of us that I think are sentient and maybe some form of intelligence, we just have this curiosity to want to understand things, and maybe that could be a possible answer.
Could very well.
I think so. That's a great answer to that, and I wondered that, and just like scientists, I mean, scientists have been discovering or analyzing the same data for years for one subject, because there's always something new that they find. And so perhaps that's something that they're just so inquisitive about us. Certainly, we're inquisitive about them.
It's true. Either in private or in public, we do have an interest, for sure.
I think most people probably do, even if they'll smirk at you. They wonder. There's more people looking up today than I think ever, especially with so much has been on television, on the regular news of late about it. It's like, sometimes you can't get away with it on your local news. We get a lot of it throughout the month, so
That's pretty good.
yeah, it's okay. It's some, but you still get again the smirks. So I was also watching one of your shows, and I had experience with the shadow people before, and I think Christa, I don't know if Christa. Well, Chris is a paranormal investigator, been doing it for a long time. She's done a lot of paranormal accounts. I've had several growing up myself throughout my adulthood. So when you're talking about these shadow people, I heard different conversations where some people could even think that shadow people maybe are spirits from a different realm, but perhaps they're also extraterrestrial in form. Just can we kind of walk me through some of your thoughts? I know that's one of your favorite subjects.
Shadow people are truly intriguing because it has been a topic of conversation for thousands of years. We have been able to see it in several books dealing with Catholicism. We've seen it in the Quran. We've seen it in the
Mhm.
Torah and the certain Jewish scriptures as well. We're able to see it in Hinduism and Buddhism. I mean, all of these very ancient religions, we are able to see different forms of or different labels of shadow people. And there are multiple possibilities on what they could be. Could they be entities from another dimension, maybe a lower vibrating dimension? Could they be interdimensionals that haven't fully or maybe that are using some kind of invisible type cloaking, but that shadow still forms? Could it be regular forms of spirits? Could it be us from the future during this time slip? When I spoke to researcher Mike Ricksecker, he definitely opened my mind to these kinds of possibilities with the stories that he shared. But when we're dealing with the topic of shadow people, I think one of the examples that people bring up most are jinn in the Islamic religion, where there are these smokeless fire entities that live in their own dimension and they have their own lives as well, but they're able to kind of slightly mingle into our realm or our dimension, doing whatever is either asked of them, maybe through black magic or through their own accord. Now, we can also bring this up with skinwalkers. And this is a more of a touchy subject, especially when we're dealing with First Nation tribes, as they never wish to speak of the skinwalkers. But we can potentially bring this same kind of topic with shadow type entities. I want to throw this out here. I actually watched one of the latest episodes of Ghost Adventures. They went to Utah and they did a whole
I've seen
episode.
this,
Did you
yep.
watch it, Krista?
I
They did
did.
a whole episode on skinwalkers, and it definitely brought a different dimension to the topic, because usually when we're dealing with this topic, we consider the Utes and the Navajo and their war that they had in Utah, where these shaman or these witch doctors would have to do an absolutely terrible crime in order to become a skinwalker, to where they're able to wear an animal's fur and then turn into that animal. Well, according to the research of that team, Ghost Adventures, and you can take it or leave it, but I found it rather interesting, is that they can also be a form of slaves as well. And I'm using that word lightly. Let me get into that in just a moment. To where they are actually working for these shaman, for these witch doctors, instead of turning into a skinwalker, they're actually just kind of hiring almost these kinds of entities that have these glowing yellow or red eyes, that we also hear those descriptions across the world when dealing with shadow entities. And then, of course, we have the very famous old hag or the man in the hat, like the Hat Man shadow entity as well. But it in all cultures across all countries, you're going to find at least one shadow person encounter. And the question is, why? What are these things? Could they be all different kinds of entities depending on how this person is experiencing it? When we're dealing with labels, that's where it gets very difficult, because what I might classify as maybe a jinn, Krista, you could say, no, it's a skinwalker. But
Right.
what we're dealing with the same entity, but these labels are is getting us confused.
Mhm.
Or could they be totally different entities altogether, because we can't put all of our eggs in one basket? That's the fascination for me with this stuff, is that we don't really know where to look.
Right. Right. Are you able to get out very often and either, go out and watch the skies or even ghost hunt or anything like that?
So I do go out and I do watch the
Mhm.
skies as much as I can. However, I'm not traveling just yet until I get my RV to be able to travel all the UFO and paranormal hotspots. But
Mhm.
it is something that I'm very excited to do, to buy the right equipment and but it's always important to do a little bit more research before you
Mhm.
go into a location, because you
Sure.
don't really know what you're going to get yourself into.
Sure.
I
Absolutely.
had heard that somewhere that you're going to actually be going mobile on the road with a cool RV. You're going to have it all decked out with all the modern latest technology. Are you going to be all are we going to have just your picture be plastered on the side of it? Strange paradigms. Just
Well, the thing is, no, I'm not gonna put my face on there. I
all
want
right.
it to
I'm
be
just,
incognito.
I figured
All
you
right,
would.
that's
I had to
my
throw
goal.
that in there.
Of course, but it's something that I've planned for the last several years, and I was hoping to get the RV as soon as I graduated, but with how things are going and how life takes place, right?
Mhm.
Things have been postponed. It's been a lot more expensive than I could have ever imagined, especially
Yeah.
as the years progress.
Hmm.
But it's still going to happen, but now I'm just not fully sure when. But I do want to deck it out with FLIR equipment, with regular cameras as well, and anything and everything that I could possibly need to go on these investigations and be as scientific as possible.
Very cool. I look forward to it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Your
Christa.
adventure. Yeah.
All off the top of your head, I'm sure this might change over the years. What would be the first destination you would like to go to and just hang out?
Oh, probably Sedona and go to Bradshaw Ranch. That's probably one of
Mm,
the first places I'd like to go to,
yeah.
as Sedona is believed to be one of the most popular UFO hotspots in the United States. And you're also dealing with like vortexes and stuff, so they say, and all of these different things. Now, for those that aren't familiar with Bradshaw Ranch, it's very similar to
Mhm.
Skinwalker Ranch. It was owned by the Bradshaw family. They wrote a whole book on it. Then in the early 2000s, it was bought by the United States government. They kicked everyone out, they bought the land, and apparently they were doing significant investigations. Locals had mentioned if they stood on a very certain mountain, they're able to look down at Bradshaw Ranch and see scientists walking around. And if you were to walk near the premises, there were people, again in the early 2000s, there were military officials with rifles or guns or whatever protecting the area. Now, since then, it has been abandoned, but it is still classified as private property. You're not fully able to get in. Otherwise, it is classified as trespassing. But to my understanding, the government is no longer doing research in that area, but it is not stopping the immense strangeness that is taking place in the area, at least according to the locals in
Yeah.
Sedona, Arizona. Now, the second place I'd love to go to is obviously Skinwalker Ranch and the Bridgewater Triangle in Massachusetts to find my very own Puckwudgie. I want to see a Puckwudgie so bad.
Why a
Uh,
Puckwudgie?
Why? Well, number one, he is like Mr. Mascot on my channel. This is Puck the
Gotcha.
Puckwudgie. But in all seriousness, in all reality, these kinds of cryptids are a type of goblin that are very mischievous, also a little bit evil as well. And if you
Mhm.
stand near a cliff near the Bridgewater Triangle, they will push you off, and they have allegedly fire arrows that they will shoot at you. The very interesting thing about these goblins is that those legends are consistent across the world. We
Yeah.
hear them in Peru living in mines. We hear about the leprechauns living in Ireland. We hear about the Puckwudgies in the Bridgewater Triangle. And I just think it's very odd, kind of like the Bigfoot, to where we hear these stories consistently across the world, across time, but we haven't found one yet.
You know,
Never.
we did a show on Blondes and Booze, and it's probably been 6 months ago. But a childhood friend of mine, 20 years ago, she saw 5 Puckwudgies come out of a tree, and they come out on all fours. And she was in a deer stand. She was deer hunting. They came out on all fours, and then they got up on twos and walked away. And that was in Missouri, which is odd.
hmm.
That story just made my day.
Yeah.
Just my whole day right there.
Yeah. So
I've heard those same things about the Puckwudgie, and the little people, kind of the same but different. We did a story not too long ago about the little people. They raided a town, and I got this story. We did it on the show where some of these little people now, the Puckwudgie that you say could be evil, which makes me
Mhm.
or mean or whatever verbiage you want to use to it, mischievous.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they did this or not because I was reading this, and this is from a First Nations person from Lake Superior. Now, where I live in Michigan, Lake Superior, you guys, Lake Michigan, Lake Erie, UFO City,
Okay.
Cryptid City, underground military bases. I mean, there's UFOs coming out of the water at Lake Superior. There are cryptids snatching people literally off the shorelines, allegedly. And this is something no different. It was a First Nations person was telling me an actual story about. First, there was this like woman, this crazed, like disheveled woman came down out of the mountains or out of the hills. There's no mountains to Superior, the hills, into this camp, right? And she's ravaged. And she's all full of hair, not a Bigfoot, nothing like that. Like maybe a hairy person or a wild person, but she couldn't speak very well. And she had on the back of her shoulder was what appeared to be a human-like but inhuman-looking infant. It had like raised spines on the back, almost like a porcupine,
Mhm.
but it had the face of a humanoid. And she acted very she had her palms opened out and she was like asking for food. It just so happens one of these First Nations persons that was telling me the story threw her some food. She ran up into the hills. Very odd, very strange. And then several days later, the entire encampment was taken over by what he said were he appeared to be little people. This woman, this wild woman, maybe 5 foot tall, perhaps she was. These other little people now, they came down out of the hills, 3 foot, 3.5 foot tall, 36 inches, covered in all sorts of different animal pelts, like from fox to the raccoon, bunch of different squirrel pelts, and they ran through the village, terrorizing the village. But they weren't stealing food; they weren't looking for any resources. It appeared to be that they were looking for little babies, okay, children. So this went on for this attack took place for about 20 minutes up to an hour. They were saying I can't recall the exact time frame. And when they left back up into the hills, 3 kids were missing. Babies in between 1 and 3 were missing out of the.
Mhm.
They were missing out of the encampment, right of their where they lived, and they were all going to get gathered together and get back up in the hills to find the kids. Obviously, the babies. For whatever the reason, they weren't going to do it until morning time, which I found very strange. If it was my kid, boom, I'm immediately going into the hills
Mhm.
because I guess this 5 foot wild woman came down from the hills and I guess telepathically to the First Nations people told them we got what is ours or something to that effect, Christa, if you remember,
Mhm.
uh, and kind of warned them not to come after the kids, otherwise they would forever their land would be forever cursed. So I guess the elders got together and they had a discussion, which I can't again picture this that they would not go after the missing children, and they let it be as it was in fear of this legendary curse. Like I have a couple questions with this one. What was this 5 foot woman, and what actually were those other things that came down? And did kidnap and get rid of and take 3 babies. Well, allegedly, right, 1 to 3 years
Mhm.
old. You ever had anything quite so crazy about that, like that, Christina?
I have. It's actually a consistent theme when dealing with these types of goblin type entities, and we even see it in movies as well, where these entities are taking very specifically small children from that age range up until about the age of 5 or 6 or so. And the big question is, why are they doing that? Well, there are many possibilities on why that might be, but what's difficult to fathom is that the parents aren't looking for
Mhm.
them. I mean, those are their children. They made
Right.
those kids. Why aren't they going out, even in fear of a curse? The mother, the father instinct would go immediately and say, I
Right.
don't care. My kids are more important than that. And when we're dealing with these kinds of entities, There are stories that they are also a form of interdimensionals, are able to open portals either through tree trunks or through their own accord and enter their own realm to where you're never able to find those children again. And it's very difficult, if not very rare, to find any instances where a child was brought back from these entities, either given back to humanity, to the human civilization, or to where they were found. You don't come across very many stories, if any, really. And so it's when we're dealing with that aspect of this topic, it's very dark, it's very sinister, it's very sad to hear. And I think people, maybe including myself, kind of shy away from that. Luckily, all of us here, we're adults and we won't be taken. We're a little bit too tall for them. But I would never take, if I were to have a child, I would never take them out into the forest like that. There's no way. There's too many dangers there.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a long discussion that night on that about that because it just a lot of stuff didn't add up,
Of course.
Yeah, it didn't. And then the biggest thing was, as you said, Christina, was the parent instinct kicks in, regardless of a curse, regardless of what the tribal elders got together and had a meeting. We were deciding not to go. Well, I tell you what, you can take your meetings all you like and give us a decision. But if it's my kid, I'm going.
Of course.
And if you're going to kick me out of the remove me from the tribe, then go for it. So as it turns out, this person that told me the story ended up, because of what was going on there, left and lived off of Lake Superior, really well north, and now lives in upper lower Michigan. And so had to, and they were not too happy with this person leaving because they did not want any of this gotten out to us here us northerners, right? So southerners of southern Michigan. So they're very tight-lipped, and she's gotten a lot of threats on leaving. How she got found, I don't know, but again, it's just things of different cultures, different societies, and when we're wrapping it around cryptids or these interdimensionals, it's really a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. But however, it does exist.
Mm-hmm.
It does exist. You had mentioned about the 411. Let's switch over gears a little bit to the portal aspect. Now, I know, again, certain people blame certain things. I think, much like everything is connected, I think we can go with 10 or 15 different reasons behind the 411. And I think, I don't know about Christa or Cristina, I think the portal's got to be top 3.
Oh, yeah. But in a heartbeat, I would jump through a portal. I don't even care about the consequences. I would go through it in a heartbeat. What about you guys?
Well, we had this discussion the other day. Christa, I believe you said no.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I said yes, but I'd want about 100 feet of rope, wrapped around my waist or chain.
Like Poltergeist, huh?
Yeah. Never seen Poltergeist.
Well, I think, what about have you guys heard of like the steps in the middle of the forest? Would you walk up them?
I have.
No, can you tell me the story? I don't know this.
Just people claim that they see like a set of steps in the middle of a forest, in the middle of nowhere, that lead to nowhere.
And yes, Christa, and the staircase is not from a disheveled building. They're just there.
Just there.
And they lead, and I've heard these stories many times where it's allegedly you're not supposed to walk up those stairs, or you're going through a portal, you're not returning. And the stairs disappear. I've heard stories where the stairs are right in the middle of the forest. Somebody went up the stairs, and in a blink of an eye, the staircase disappeared. Could not get back down.
Right.
Or from whatever, it closed. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look it up, Cristina. There's a lot more to it than that. But yes.
Yeah. But my point being, with the portals, I believe like the steps are a portal as well.
I mean, if you're disappearing, right?
Yeah.
That'll take you hopefully to another location, hopefully safe. That's like what's really important, because obviously we don't know what's on the other side, but
Right.
curiosity is just definitely what drives a lot of people, myself included, to where I'll be like, yeah, it's fine. As long as I have a backpack full of snacks, preferably ramen, maybe a few
Right.
bottles of water, I'm
Right.
going. What do I have to lose?
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
life. That's about it.
What do you think these aliens, what do you think they want from us?
I don't know. I don't.
Hmm.
But there have been a lot of stories, a lot of cases and encounters to where you have two types. Those are those that are nice and those that aren't. Those that want to
Right.
help humanity. I mean, there
Hmm.
have been stories of people that have been taken or actually given an invitation to go onto the craft, to where they show them around the universe and they say, take care of the planet, help with pollution, help with this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And then they come back and these humans are given some kind of mission, right, to help
Right.
humanity. And then you have other instances to where people are abducted, they're terrified across the board. They
Right.
are harassed in every possible way with no explanation, no reason, and they're dropped back off. But
Mhm.
for a lot of these instances, their memories are wiped. And
Yeah.
I think that is what's very interesting. Why bother wiping the memory? You already did the damage. There's
Right.
certain evidence, maybe dealing with scars above the navel, or people are able to see a slight probe protruding from their skin, but it's still in there.
Mhm.
They feel certain strange things in their body. I mean, to them, there is tangible evidence to what they encountered. Why bother wiping the memories?
Right.
And so why are people being abducted? Are we merely just cattle? Is it to help their agenda? Are we all some form of hybrid? Maybe.
Yeah.
I wish I had an answer. I really do, but I don't have one at this point in time.
Yep. That's what we're all here looking for.
Yes, I'm sorry for my brief disappearance. There was a rapping at my side door, talking about a paranormal encounter, right? Get up, see who's there at this time. There's no one there. I'm like, then I go back, turn around, come back here, studio area, knocked again. Go back again, no one's there. Come on, you guys. I mean, really?
Really
And there's no really kids in this neighborhood. Most of them are my age.
interesting.
Very
Did you get
interesting.
Did you get any EBGBs or woo-woos or anything?
No, I just thought it was kind of. I didn't want to leave the show, but I was like, who is pounding at the side door?
Hmm.
And nobody apparently.
Interesting. I have a question for you, Christina. What are your thoughts on CE5?
I have very mixed feelings about CE5. I've mentioned this before and I have no problem mentioning it again. I have like three feelings. I have one that I think is like, who are we to invite these entities to really just hang out? Like that's what the majority of
Right.
people's mentality is like. I just want to see you, come on down because I have the power to call you. I find that narcissistic. I find it very odd. And then there's
Mhm.
another part of like, maybe everything is as it should be. Maybe you're ready to have that experience, that encounter, and they're here to fulfill that. But then it's like, who are these entities? Who are we calling down? Which then leads to like this third part of, is CE5 kind of like dealing with the Ouija board? Like you don't know
Mhm.
calling, good, bad, you just want to have a good
Right.
time. And
Right.
so for myself, I haven't tried it.
Mhm.
It's not really on my list of things to do, to be honest with you. But I do not condemn anyone for trying it. By all
Right.
means, do what you think is best. But I have very mixed feelings. And the biggest one is just, who are we to invite these, what we might classify as intelligent beings,
Right.
come down just to show us themselves?
Yeah.
And really briefly, I'm going to take. I like to do this like almost midway part of the show. We go about 90 minutes, Christina. I don't know if I ever told you. I want to thank T-Bone, the Ridge Runner. Thank you, the Ridge Runner. I didn't see that. Gary Spike Sr. for the memberships. I do appreciate that. Thank you so much. If you're new here, coming on in for the first time, because I see a few people that I don't recognize, please subscribe to Bigfoot Mr. Rob if you're new on YouTube. The Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcasts on YouTube, Texas Front Porch. And if perhaps some of you are new to Cristina, subscribe to Christina's channel, right? And Christina simply called Cristina Gomez on YouTube. Is that correct?
Yes, with no H in Cristina.
And Rob
Yes.
has the link posted in the show.
Yes. In fact, I also have a couple of your links. I got all your information I've got via strangeparadigms.com. I think it might be, but it's and your channel's all in the description. Yep.
Mhm.
So thanks for everybody for coming in. I really do appreciate it, as does the ladies tonight. Great show.
Mhm.
Great show.
Absolutely.
I'm a little, freaked out, what happened at the side door, but I'll get through it.
So since when did ghost stuff start happening at your house? I know you've had like nightmares, but
Talking about me?
yeah, you.
That to me of ghost stuff at my house.
Yeah, like,
well,
what is
that I don't think that's a gun. You guys, I'm just kind of playing it up. That's nothing paranormal. I'm guessing it's just.
So what is it then?
Well, I guess you're right, because the next house closest over is 50 yards away, and it came from that side of the house, and there's an empty lot, and then the street is another 90 feet from the door, 120 feet. So yeah, I don't know, and it's dark outside.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I don't want to think about it during the show, because I'll freak out and I'll lose my concentration. But I've
Well,
seen
wouldn't it be a
ghosts
track
ever since
star?
I was a little kid. What's that?
Well, to be able to, if it's 50 feet, for them to knock on the door and then to run, they got to be a track star. They got to be
They gotta
really
run.
fast.
Oh yeah, and I
Yeah.
didn't really look. I mean, I opened the door and just pulled one of these, and then because I didn't want to stay away from this too long, right? So I'm like,
Right.
yeah. But you're right though, because it's an empty field, that side door. It is a field. I mean, I can see straight ahead. Thanks, TCG. But we won't concern ourselves with that now. But Christa, I started seeing ghosts when I was a little boy.
Right.
And I had the shadow
But
people.
I'm saying at your house, though,
This particular house, no. At my childhood home and at my marital house, I saw the shadow people. Yeah. But yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Yes, very. So when I was gone, I guess, were we talking about a little bit of the elements of what makes up the 411, or did you guys kind of wander off of that for a little bit?
We wandered off of that.
Okay, very well.
We can go back there.
Well, I did have a question if Cristina heard about this, and I think, Christa, you have, and a lot of people in chat might have. How come it's so? And I've gotten stories like this, heard stories like this, seen it on TV, seen it on YouTube, seen it on the internet. Why does it seem in a lot of instances? I mean, I think I have my reasoning behind it. It's either the first person or the last. If you're walking, which I would never walk single file on a trail, I'm going four abreast, with a row of four people abreast, not in back of each other. It's always the first person or the last person, the first one to get to vanish. In a lot of instances, too, their clothes are found 100 yards up the stream or off at the ridge, a mountain ridge, or between power lines, and they're always nicely folded clothes of the person that vanished. I've heard these. Pallades has done a couple stories like that, and for the life of God, I can't put two and two on that. Especially the clothes thing being folded is eerie. I kind of have my ideas about the first person, the last person in line, and the front person, but the clothes thing, Cristina, you've heard that, I'm sure.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, Dave Paulides is just one of the best when it comes to investigating that. I'm a big fan of his work because he's one of the very few that looks at this with very serious eyes, really trying to understand this very strange mystery to where sometimes clothes are nicely folded near an area, usually near water, or only boots are found, but nothing else, not the body, no backpack, nothing. That's very strange. And I think we have to start off with looking at children that go missing in forests. And now there have been very few cases to where the child is found, and they're usually found 50, 100 yards away from their original spot days later, where the search and rescue team looks all across that area. They don't see the kid, and then a few days pass and the kid is right there. And there are some instances to where the children, when they're old enough to attempt and explain that they were carried by a very hairy looking person and dropped off and placed right there. So are we dealing with Bigfoot here? Does Bigfoot know how to fold clothing better than me, which is really not that hard to do? But when we're looking at this very interesting topic, Why bother taking off a person's clothes and folding it nicely, but not being able to find the body? Why leave boots? Why let the children return, but not the adults?
Yep.
When we look at the topic of Bigfoot, there are a lot of theories on what they are. Are they hybrid humans? Were they a test gone wrong? Are they a type of like alien kind of entity? Are they their own natural entity growing up here on planet Earth doing their own thing? Native American tribes across the United States and actually across the world, or dealing with certain indigenous tribes, they mention that Bigfoot, the Yeti, the Yowie, the Yeren are protectors of that area of the earth, doing their own thing, making sure that everything is copacetic, that everything is fine in that area, but to always maintain a distance because they might be protecting a place, but doesn't necessarily mean that they're ready to be friends with humanity. Could that be as to why these protectors might be returning children because they do not want their children taken from them? They have that level of compassion, but also that level of intelligence to drop off a backpack near water to allow the search and rescue to attempt and find these entities. Are Bigfoot able to open up portals to take them to their own realm or dimension to take people or maybe food to their home? And they just drop off the remaining stuff back over here. There are amazing stories of people that have seen Bigfoot enter and exit tree trunks, or the footprints just magically disappear on snow or on the dirt going in one direction and then just gone with no
Oh, for
explanation.
sure.
Yeah.
When we look at these kinds of topics, there is so much to look at. There are so many ways to where we can attempt to create our own conclusion. But until we actually speak to one of these entities, we can't fully find the answers that maybe that we're looking for. Now, there are very interesting cases to where Bigfoot has allegedly telepathically spoken to certain people, saying, turn the other way, don't come any further. And they also provide those same kind of warnings with throwing rocks and pebbles at you and pine cones and all these different things because their land is theirs, our land is ours, and we will not trespass. Because they're probably very aware on how aggressive and dangerous people are, especially with the level of curiosity. We kill it, we take it, we put it in a lab. It's not, let's very kindly ask it to our house, give it some tea, give it a good time, and ask it questions. We don't take that route.
Right.
We take the more aggressive route. And maybe they have that idea of how that's how humanity acts across the board, even though that might not be the case. Some people are good, some are not. But maybe the ones that they've dealt with and the ones that they tell their children is all humans are bad.
Wow.
Yeah, there's so many avenues you can go. Ancient people, a flesh and blood being, the woo being, a spirit being, an alien being. But before we get into that, I got to ask you, do you think that let's just say ABC agencies, I always say the government, kind of, sick of saying the government all the time. But do you think that we in the United States, North America, and let's keep it at that, have one of these? You think we've shot and killed a Bigfoot and we have it in a lab somewhere?
Probably. Yeah. It's a very high possibility, especially with the interest that the FBI has shown. I know that John Greenwald Jr. with the Black Vault had provided some paperwork on the FBI doing investigations with Bigfoot. If they're not real, why bother? Right? Why bother doing an investigation? It's the same thing with UFO offices since the 1950s all the way until present day. All these different offices give us the same answer of nothing to see here. UFOs are terrestrial. We don't have a full answer, but it's nothing crazy. Then why bother doing the research? Why bother doing the investigations for decades? Bigfoot is very similar to that. And the only reason to why they are continuing that research is because there is something to it. Maybe they have tech in their labs. Maybe they have a Bigfoot in their labs. And when we consider Bigfoot, for instance, right? There have been stories of people shooting at them and they're left untouched, unharmed, maybe a little bit of drip of blood, and that's it. If that. If the military, the government, the ABC agencies were able to get a hold of a Bigfoot, it would be like class A military officials to where they could infiltrate an area. They're built, they're huge, they won't get harmed, and they'll do the job better than a human. Right now we have robots and AI and drones, so maybe we don't need Bigfoot at that same capacity, but everything to them needs to be weaponized.
Everything's about weaponization. Like, you go back to the dog man. I think there's an aspect to dog man, but I also think Christa probably, I think you do too, a little bit a part of the dog man phenomenon. I believe that those were created in a base. I think that's an experiment gone wrong. And again, reverting back to 411, another part of the missing 411. I heard stories about militant dogman being created in laboratories by us or whoever, and they were put in certain parts of our national parks and forests because they were getting out of control. They're trying to control these things. Now today with AI, they might be work. I guarantee they're working on that as well. And I had just heard stories that they are part of also these projects gone wrong. We could just blanket all of the weird inhumanoid things that run around the forest not made by, that are not natural.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm just going to put yes there because I have nothing to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably goes on and hard to fathom, but then again, what is hard to fathom? Here's the one thing I find hard to fathom, though. We're going to, Cristina, we always talk about this once in a while, that Eisenhower Treaty.
That was just going through my head to ask her about.
So you go ahead, follow up.
No, you go right ahead. You go right ahead.
Basic question. You think that happened? The treaty with aliens for technology?
The Eisenhower Treaty, real or not, it's one of my favorite topics because if we take the path that it really did happen, it's fascinating. Because as the story goes, what happened was when Eisenhower was taking his private jet to the Holloman Air Force Base, his pilots and his security guards had mentioned that they were being followed by a UFO craft, almost guiding them towards the destination. Because obviously Eisenhower did not talk about this, but those in this jet that he was in allegedly spoke about it. And that's how we have this story today. And so then for about after the jet lands on the Holloman Air Force Base, Eisenhower spends about 42 minutes in this unknown craft. And supposedly they had a treaty with the hook-nosed Greys to where Eisenhower gave them the ability to abduct cattle and humans in return for advanced technology. Mm-hmm. And after that took place, there are stories that ever since then we have been getting mass advancements with telephones, with computers, and a lot of the tech that we have currently. Then this brings in a movie that's called Past, Present, and Future by Robert Emenegger. I love his last name. And he created a movie on this interaction and a little bit more as well, that allegedly he had help by the United States Air Force. And according to Emenegger, he had stated that when he was speaking with military in order to get certain information about this encounter, because he was getting help from them, he was invited into the Pentagon to look at certain paperwork, movie, film, and a few photos during certain encounters that took place at the Holloman Air Force Base, both with Eisenhower and another encounter that took place with extraterrestrials there. And supposedly, the person at the Pentagon said, we will allow you to use some of this film in your movie, in your fiction movie. Fiction, right? And then they are working through it. They're getting all this stuff done, and then the Pentagon backs out, and they say, "No, actually, we're not going to give you this section of the film. You just got to make it up on your own." And so they ended up doing that. You're able to find this movie. It was created a few decades ago now, but it is a classic. It is pretty good. And supposedly, according to them, is that it's meant to be overall true of what happened at the Holloman Air Force Base. But as we have learned from disinformation agent Richard Doty, you're going to mix fact with fiction. And then people got to figure out which one's which. And that's where the fun is for those kinds of people. But for you and I, that's where the frustration lies of who do you believe, what do you believe, and what kind of gives you that decision or that choice to say this is true, but this is
Right. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's and always have the disinformation agent that screws up everything for us, don't they?
Yep.
It's true.
That's they do.
So go ahead, Christa. Go ahead.
I was just going to say she has a question that somebody asked, and this is something I'm interested in too. Moon at Noon says, too many questions to answer without full disclosure. Cristina, do you think full truth disclosure will happen?
Not from the government. It will not take place. It would not be given to us by them. If we were to get a full level of disclosure, it will come from the people having conversations like these or another mass sighting. When I say another, a really good one was the Phoenix Lights that took place back in 1997. Yeah. But if we were to take it a step further, my goodness, my words are just kind of meshing together. If you were to take a step further and maybe compare it to the movie Contact, right, to where these entities or these ginormous craft come down across the world simultaneously, it is going to force people to ask questions and consider the mere possibilities of these topics that we're covering here today. And then, only then, will the governments across the world be forced to have to disclose certain information. And this leads into the latest report that we received from Arrow back in March. And I think one of the biggest highlights from that report that just has struck me ever since is when they had mentioned that other foreign UFO offices across the world agree with Arrow that UFOs are not extraterrestrial. This, I thought, was insane because the United States, in that moment, the Arrow office was acting as the big brother of saying, all right, guys, Japan, Russia, China, all of South America, we can all agree, right, that UFOs are not alien, right? Then we immediately saw it with Australia with their FOIA report that was given to us by Grant Lavov. I think his last name's so butchered. I'm so sorry, Grant. Then we saw it from Japan as well, and their parliament that said, nope, nothing to see here. But then that's kind of changing up. We're probably going to see it with the Canada Sky Project, where they have a very similar office to Arrow, to where they will be giving the public their UFO reports by the end of this year. And it seems as if the United States, the Arrow office, placed this blanket across the globe to say nothing to see here. And people that have had their own sightings and experiences, and ever since 2017, it's very difficult to place the toothpaste back into the tube and say, you showed us all this interest for a handful of years and now you're going back on that. Does that even make sense? And so people are really beginning to question everything that they're being told, that they're being shown, and what they're reading as well.
You know, another story that I just don't understand, and it's here in the state of Michigan. You probably heard it was 1993, I think it was. It was the biggest Michigan UFO case that we've ever had out over Lake Michigan. It went through like Sagatuck, Michigan, Ludington, Michigan, up and down the coast. 360 UFOs spotted on radar. Called in, like, or 1,200 people called this in from the state of Michigan, and you could see them all the way out to the middle of Lake Michigan to Chicago, Illinois. You see these things, and I forgot the gentleman's name that was in charge that night of the radar, where he's seen these blips, and they're moving. And tremendous. I can't talk tonight either. At tremendous amounts of speed, up and down, 20,000 miles an hour here and there, all over darting. Then boom, it all blanked out. It all disappeared. And you hear the recordings. I listened to the recording several times. In fact, it's on a mystery, missing, a mysteries of the world or something like one of those shows on Travel Channel. But everybody call these in like 1,200 reports, like 300 different blips on the radar, all different sizes, all in formation, all in a triangle formation, somewhere by themselves, rows, just going darting here and here. And, the funny thing is, and this was during a time over Lake Michigan where certainly Lake Michigan does not totally freeze over. It's impossible. It's a big body of water. There's a current in there. But yes, you get your ice floating throughout. But this particular year, though, Christina, on Lake Michigan, but a great vast amount of it, 83% was actually frozen. Okay, pretty solidly, which is quite a bit for Lake Michigan. Except there was a spot where a bunch of these craft are over the lake, and it was broken open, and it was not solid. Okay, and they seen these things dart down into Lake Michigan and disappear. Now that in itself is amazing, but going back to your earlier point about your story, why did not people take this seriously? I mean, to me, that is a UFO exists. I mean, and they'll call them UAPs, which to me is just our man-made craft, as far as I'm concerned, right? But that's something, isn't it? I mean, that's not. You can't write it off as American or government craft. I mean, there's too many of them.
I hear you. I really do. The Great Lakes has had its fair share of UFO sightings. I mean, that in itself is a UFO hotspot. People are consistently seeing UFOs enter and exit the water. And isn't the best place to hide? Wouldn't it be in the water? Because, for instance, our oceans alone, only 10 to 15% have been explored, scanned, and understood, leaving 85 to 90% of our oceans in the category of unknown, also monster soup as well. And so with that information that we know, it would be amazing to hide there. And also our submarines can only go so deep. Divers can only go so deep, which really is nothing. If we're dealing with these truly very technological craft that are beyond human comprehension, they can go at depths and withstand water pressures that we simply cannot understand nor comprehend. And when we're dealing with the Great Lakes, those depths are immense depths for submarines not really able to deal with that kind of water pressure. But the sighting that you have mentioned, I am familiar with it. And when we're dealing actually with any of these big sightings, it all depends on how the media reacts and how the government reacts. That is how the majority of people, since news started, got their information and know what to believe and what not to believe. We've also been taught since very young to always question ourselves, to doubt ourselves as well. And so when people have these kinds of experiences, they question, am I crazy? Did I really see that? I'm not going to share this with anyone because they're going to ridicule me, because we have been taught to do so by the media, by the news, by all of these movies and documentaries since the beginning. And what if it is all by design to control the public, to entice this level of fear, of overall ridicule? Because none of us want to stand out and to be pointed out as a bad example. We all want to be felt. We all want to feel safe and secure. And in reality, wearing black and white like everybody else for the majority of people. I know we have a few exceptions here, but you see where I'm coming from. And so how it all depends on how the media covered it, or if they didn't cover it at all, because that's what's going to solidify the encounter or the experience that people witnessed in Michigan.
Yeah, I suppose so. And again, with Lake Superior, we were talking earlier. I know that there's all sorts of craft going in and out of the water reported of Lake Superior. Then, of course, we also got all our famed monsters, aquatic monsters, right? I mean, which to me, I think a lot of them are the very big. Forgot the name of the fish. Sturgeon. I mean, a lot of sturgeon around here have been misplaced for sharks or some sort of other cryptid creature, aquatic cryptid creature. But the mysteries of the Great Lakes, I love where I live because we've got the mysteries of the Great Lakes, UFOs, Bigfoot. We've got Dogman. Wexford, Michigan is the capital for Dogman. Back in 1983, I think the first spotting was in Michigan alone. And then we've got what I also love are our haunted lighthouses and just up and down the coast, immense things. And I think somebody mentioned in chat that there's a Stonehenge, something like a Stonehenge at the bottom of the Great Lakes. I never heard that one.
Yeah, I've seen that too. I think Charles said something about that.
Yeah. Ever hear that, Christina?
I'm not too familiar on it to comment.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm about the same.
Yeah, me too.
If I were to be honest here,
I
don't want to BS.
Well, Digger says yes, there is, Rob. Well, you guys got to email me some info, and I'll look it up. But yeah, I'd like to know which Great Lake it was.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. That'd be a nice starting point. What Great Lake is the alleged Stonehenge here in the Great Lakes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's.
So, Christa, you got anything where we got Cristina this hour and a half? We go 90 minutes typically. We got about 8 minutes to go here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Cristina is a wealth of knowledge, and you have really good energy about you.
Thank you. That is so nice.
You really do. Yeah.
Very positive person, well spoken, and yes, you're going to be very successful. You still are. You're successful right now. And you just started. You just got out of college. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Did you have anything along the paranormal side you want to roll by, Miss Gomez, Christa? Anything that's
Have you went out and done any like ghost hunting or anything like that?
I have, but it's been very. What's the word I want to use? I didn't use all the proper equipment. It was just kind of more. Okay, actually, no, I have a story for you. I'll show you my very first paranormal investigation that I did. So this was actually back in high school. And I said, Dad, get in the car. We're going to go for a ride, right? And so we drove for hours just on a straight road, going nowhere, just kind of hoping to see where the road would take us. And then we came across this super abandoned building in the middle of nowhere, like just fields, really. And it had an old well. It was a broken down house that just had only a few rocks there, actually. And I thought to myself, you know what? This is the best place to go. It was already nightfall. We've been driving for hours, going nowhere, to be honest with you. And I was maybe 17 or so. And I thought, you know what? I don't have an EMP reader, but you know what I do have? My phone. And you know what the phone has? Apps. So like a silly person, right? I just thought I'm just going to download some ghost apps in the middle of nowhere and see how it goes. I don't know how phones could do that. I don't know how certain apps can work with the cell phone in order to make it work. But I was like, it's fine. What do I have to lose? Nothing. And so my dad and I, we were just kind of like walking around this building, just us, in the middle of nowhere. And just kind of hoping for the best. And I told my dad, I'm like, what if that window right now, well, that frame of a window is actually a portal? Should I go through it and see what happens?
Right.
Of course, nothing happened, but my dad was holding onto my belt loop and he's like, if you want to go, I'll make sure to pull you back out. Right. And it was just a really funny experience. Did we catch anything? No, of course not. I did not have the equipment. I was by no means ready. I knew nothing about paranormal investigations, but that memory has always stuck with me as being a very positive one in order to do that with my father, who shares a very similar interest to myself, but he's more kept to himself. He doesn't really like to talk out publicly about it, but between him and I, we have very similar interests.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I'll have to have you on Blondes and Booze sometime if you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Oh yeah, always a good time, always a great show. And Cristina Gomez is the name of her YouTube channel, and I think everything for Cristina is in this show. Cristina, any final thoughts, words, what you got going on, and then we can wrap it up.
Thank you. First, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on. It was a lot of fun to share stories, to hear stories from the both of you as well. I mean, it's amazing to hear what other people go through, either with their family or having their family also encounter strange things. So, I really enjoyed hearing that. And Christa, you had some really fantastic questions. For myself, I mean, the best place to stay up to date is on my YouTube channel under Cristina Gomez, or on my website at Strange Paradigms, to where you can find all of my social media. I also write articles for all of the topics that I cover as well. And I do have like a fun fact channel, along with a space ambient music channel as well. Awesome.
You're a busy gal.
Space ambient music channel. What's that like, for meditation purposes, or?
Well, it's
I don't
called
know.
Cosmic. It's called Cosmic Portals, and the space ambient music is to help myself and others relax, to use their imagination to wander the universe, and also sleep as well. I suffer with insomnia, so I originally made that music for myself, and I find it helpful, and I've received some really great feedback that people have also used it for those purposes and have seen positive results.
Awesome. Very cool.
That really is awesome. And again, awesome show. And again, right before we take off, I've got to thank a few people, of course, as always here. And if I can pull it up now. What's going on, Christa? Here we go. T-Bone, Ridge Runner, Gary Spikes, DCG, Keith, Mark, and I got another one in here. Mark again, Keith. Thank you so much for the super chats, BMR Pirates, all that stuff. If you're new here, subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube. Subscribe to the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast on YouTube. Texas Front Porch, and of course, Cristina Gomez on YouTube. Fantastic show. Fantastic show.
Yeah, it's been fun.
With that being said, I got to find the music. Cristina, again, thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule. With that being said, for Cristina and for Christa, we're out.
See ya.